Okay, folks, morning, welcome. Lee said I'm going to introduce Edward. I don't think Edward needs any introduction. He introduced himself very adequately, in fact, more than adequately yesterday. But I think that the topic for discussion this morning is quite appropriate, seeing that we kicked off the pre-recording discussion about all these lengthy Zoom meetings. We're talking about ultra marathons, and whether it's an ultra marathon on your feet or an ultra marathon in front of your computer, I'm not too sure what the outcome is, or what the process is to ensure that you don't get fatigued. So yeah, Edward, let's talk about some ultra marathons.
Yeah, I kind of wondered which one to talk about, but of course, there is only one you should talk about, and that's Comrades. And then I thought about the first Comrades I ever did, and I was really lucky because it was in 1999. And the following year, they produced a book where they listed every single Comrades runner that's ever run it in the 20th century. So I just sneaked my name in that book, and I haven't looked yet, but I know Trevor's name will be in there and Jasper's name will be in there. I'm not sure how many of those guys would have done by then, but they also list how many they do, so I'm going to have a look at that. So the Comrades Marathon has become a huge thing, and I think because it's a huge thing, it sucks people in like a black hole almost. And for me, it was tremendously exciting because it was my first trip to Africa. It was my first long trip after that one to America when I was 20. I was really prepared for it. I trained for it. Everything was going right. And in those days, we didn't have Zoom, we didn't have Facebook, we didn't have networking. So I knew nothing about it. There was nothing written about it in the UK. So I almost trained from just first principles. And I think in South Africa, you've got this huge group of people that run in clubs, and everyone trains for Comrades in a club. It's a big part of club life. But for me, it was a solitary experience. And then when I got there, 12,000 runners, and about 500,000 people spectating. So I'd done the preparation, I'd done everything. I was going along, I was enjoying it. And one thing they do is they give internationals a different color number. Everyone was saying, oh, where are you from? Welcome to our country. A wonderful experience. Really, everyone's sort of lifting me along. And then about 21K to go, I was really suffering. And they say in a marathon, you hit the wall at about 20 miles. I don't know what it is in K, but certainly for me at Comrades, the wall fell on me. I was totally crushed. I didn't know I could move any further. And I had, well, by then I had about 19K to go. And so 12,000 people, 500,000 spectators. I am totally alone. No one else can help me. I am totally alone. The decision whether to go on or give up was mine and mine alone. And I thought, well, I'll run to the next K marker. I'll run to the next K marker until I get to 10K. If I get to 10K, I can finish. So I got to the 10K marker, thought, oh God, now I've got to finish. And I just kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going, and I kept going, and I finished. And then on the way home, I thought about it and thought, you know what, that was the most empowering thing ever, because I suddenly realized I was on my own and only I could decide what to do. And what that meant was, whatever happened in life, I had the choice as to what I should do. No one else could ruin my life. No one else could make my life bad. Okay, I might get given a bad hand, but you can still win a game of poker with a bad hand. It decides how you do it. And I think, that's the thing that ultra marathon running taught me, was that you are in control, you make the decisions, you decide how you react to something. And I think that's probably what a lot of people have found at some other thing in their life, whether it's, a tough ordeal, a tough marriage, an abusive relationship, whatever it is, whatever they've gone through. I think at some point in time, we realize we are in control. We're the ones that make the decisions. So I just thought that might be a useful thing to talk about, is where have we found that inner strength from adversity? So over to everyone else.
Great, thanks, Edward. Yeah, I think very, very powerful metaphor there, and not only a metaphor, a physical element of what you actually went through and did there, and how it translated into the way you see life, and that was absolutely clear from your story yesterday, and I think very eloquently said again this morning. Really looking forward to those books. I must say, I think they're going to be powerful. So let's get across to Trevor first this morning. So see what his thoughts are on the metaphor or on the physical.
Comrades, you've got to be crazy. I think I'm on the first few pages of that book, Edward. I stuck the number there for you to go and have a look. Yeah, I think, you know, as South Africans, we actually grew up with this type of race in the background. So for me on the first one, I hadn't run much further than about 80 kilometers. I think I told everyone I was at a rugby practice around 1977, I think 77 or 78, and it was raining, and the rest of the blooming team, they didn't want to run in the rain. So I saw a couple of mates running on a hockey field a little bit lower below us. And I went down and said, okay, I'll run with you guys. And they said they were running a 42 kilometer. And I'd never run further than about 2.2 kilometer in the army. But listen, I used to run that 2.2 hard. And they said, well, come and run with us. So I played the rugby on the Saturday. I went and joined them outside Pietermaritzburg. So you know where that is. In a town called Richmond, and I was standing next to two guys, one by the name of Alan Robb, had just won, Edward knows him, had just won 3 Comrades, and next to him was a young varsity student by the name of Bruce Fordyce. So my mate and I, we said, no, we'll stuff these guys. We're way better than them. And we took off. And we beat them out of Richmond, which was about 2.2 kilometers. But from there, now remember, that's as far as I'd ever run. And I managed to get my first ever 42 kilometer done in 4 hours because I walked the remaining 36 kilometers from there. I had to play rugby the next week again. And the following week was Comrades in those days. You actually didn't have to qualify. But I'd done a 42 kilometer. I didn't go to rugby practice again, but I played rugby. And then the next Saturday, the guy said, no, come and run again with us, and we'll do a gentle 32, which we did. And the following week was Comrades. So I lined up at the start. And at the end, I mean, we were going so fast that guys had to stop us at Elverston, my mate and I, because we were actually going too fast at that particular stage, and they said we would collapse. Well, we were so blooming fresh at the end. We did 9 hours, 10 minutes after taking our time from Elverston onwards. And I agree with you. At the end of that, we knew we could do anything. There wasn't anything that could, if you can just get off your backside and run a 90-kilometer race, you can actually achieve anything. So I went on to do another 9, but I had set myself a goal of doing 10. I must say, Edward, I'll tell you the story about how I was going to go for a win on my second one, because if that's what I could do in my first one, I knew I could do a win on the second, and it was no joke. I was actually the lead Ironman going into that one, and I'll tell you about that if there's any time. So, yeah, you're absolutely invincible. One thing I'm going to tell Edward is that one of the Comrades, it was probably the second or third, we'd had about a 6-week rest, And then we heard that there was an ultra marathon, 100-kilometer around the 100-miler around the athletic track at University of Natal. So we said, well, let's go and have a hoot. Let's arrive there, see what happens. And 50 miles later, we decided, no, this was a little bit too far, but we had done 50 miles after 6 weeks of doing nothing. That was the sort of thing that we were doing in those days. We would just up sticks, put some, in those days it was Adidas shoes on, and go for a little jog trot of 50 miles or whatever. But ultra marathons, stupidity.
I couldn't agree with you more, Trevor. Yeah, the madness of the men and ladies who do those ultra marathons, definitely not something that was ever on my bucket list and will ever be on my bucket list, I'm afraid to say. But yeah, we've all done some interesting things. And Cecile, maybe tell you about the weekend squash tournaments that we used to play. You know, where you're playing 5 or 7 matches in 3 days, depending on how well you did in the tournament. That feels a bit like an ultra marathon at times. Cecile.
Can you just give me 2 minutes? I'm just finishing this email. I'll be back now. I'm listening. But
Cecile's on her multitasking marathon goes again. So, right, let's go to the guy who chases old ladies around Comrades. So that must be Jasper, if I recall correctly. Yeah?
Well, I'm only to be used as an example to give other people hope that if I can do it, anyone can do it. And I remember, I don't know if it was the first or the second Comrades that I prepared for, but probably the first one, because I read up on it, and I did the miles, and started with the 5Ks and the 10Ks, and then the half marathons. And then a marathon or 2, but somewhere along the line you have to almost just get over the barrier of such a long distance of almost 90 Ks. So then anything above a marathon is then called an ultra marathon, but ultra marathons can be normally the 56 Ks that they do around here in Gauteng and other areas, but then also like really serious ultra marathons, that's the 100 Ks plus. But then I went for a ultra marathon. So I've already, no, I don't know if I've qualified already. You have to either have the time in for an ultra marathon or a marathon. But I went for this ultra marathon that started in Irene, Centurion, and ended up there in the east of Joburg, around Springs area. So I know I could do the 42K distance already, but like Edward said, that day it was going fine, it was going well, around about 20 odd Ks. I hit, like he said, you run into a brick wall. It's like there's just no energy, there's just nothing. You don't know how to, you just want to stop and sit and give up. And it's then that mind game that you have to play to say, all right, just next to that tree, to that bridge, to that, and you give yourself little targets to keep going. And you walk most of the time, and then you gain some little bit of energy, and then you shuffle along. But that day was one by one, the slowest runners in the group started to pass me by, and towards the end of the race, probably the last 10, 20 kilometers, I was the last person in that race. And there was no more little stands waiting for me with water and stuff, because that was packed up by the time I got past it. But I just said to myself, I'm going to complete this. And the day started, normally I think the cutoff time is like 5 hours for a 56K run. I probably came in at, I'm not sure, but somewhere around over 6 hours. Because when I came in, they've already packed up the, where you have to run around the track and go over the finishing mark, and they take your number. But I just for myself wanted to complete that race. So I did complete it. The only person waiting there for me was my wife. Worried out of her mind what happened to me. And I was sore and stiff, but for me it was a memorable race in the fact that I completed it. And I felt that if I can complete that race, doesn't matter, I will now, I have, what do you call it, achieved a milestone in that I know how it feels, how to hang in there and complete it. And then that eventually, and I did complete the other two comrades, but I never came in like the 9 hours or the early runners there. I got my full worth of the day. I was in the last 15 minutes of the race, shuffling along the lines there. But looking back in my life, I think it's a good metaphor for business. And I like what Edward has put up here. That said, if you want to win something, run just 100 meters. And you'll occasionally get the feeling of winning. But if you want to experience something, run a marathon. And I think business and life is more like a marathon. And you have to pace yourself. So that's one of the things I've learned in marathon. You have to have comrades, and that's where the name comes from. So it doesn't matter where you are in the pack. Try and find people that you think are running more or less your pace and start striking up a conversation. And it helps to kill the time, that you don't focus on the pain in your body. You just, you find other things to focus on. And the other thing is enjoy the moment, because, whether it's 20 or 40 or 90 Ks, it's a long race. So don't just worry about the end goal. Enjoy the scenery, enjoy the people, enjoy the spectators. And then in business, I think in business is you set off, you have all the full intention to win. You organize your water points and whatever, but then life throws stuff at you. You get cramps and there's unforeseen hitting the walls and stuff like that. So I think I find I've used it over and over, and for myself to keep encouraging me to just hang in there, put the next step in front of the other, and eventually you'll get to the end goal.
Great, thanks, Jasper. All right, let's get across to a lady who participates in some ultramarathons where you can't sit down and take a rest. So Nazipo, tell us about swimming long distances and what that does for you, because you certainly can't take an easy break when you're doing that. Eh? Oh, Nazipo, we're not hearing you.
I think hi, Ivan. My network, I think, has an issue. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Okay, all right. I think on the swimming side, for me, it was a case of, in fact, before I entered the Midmar mile, I'd always loved swimming. And so I was just having a discussion with a friend, and we challenged each other to the Midmar mile, and we then started training together. One of the things I learned there, though, was, is to train at Kings Park and at Lahi. Trevor would know Lahi very well. And on a 50-meter pool. And during training, when you get to the end of the pool, you've got to flip. And what that taught me about life is that, when you hit the wall, when you get to the wall, you flip. That's how you are able to get more power. And that's how I approach life a lot of times. That when I get to the other side. But also one of the things I've come to learn is that with anything I go into, the most important part is the training of the mind. Because even with the marathon, and it became just train the mind. If your mind is able to get there, you're physically, you will follow the mind. And then I learned, as you train and it's painful and you're tired and you want to stop, and this friend of mine would just always say, when you feel the pain, don't focus on the pain. Pain is just weakness leaving the body. And in my training,
Nadia, we seem to have lost Nazipo. What a pity, and that was sounding, very.
as I get tired, it's the only thing I'll tell myself, that this pain is weakness leaving the body. And that's how I do paint from then on. Thanks.
Wonderful, thanks, Nazipa. And I love that when you hit the wall, flip. I think that's brilliant. So very, very good. So love that one. And right, Kevin, let's come across to you.
Morning, everyone. I can recall going back to 1981. That was the year the first London Marathon was run, and at that point, I was watching it on the TV. My ankle broken with metal bits in the ankle, having that the accident I spoke of when I did my story. So I was watching it there, incapable of moving, and that's what inspired me to initially, like, I can do that. I'm going to have a go at that. And 1984, 3 years later, I was on the start line and I was doing my first marathon. And as Ed said, you know, the crowds of people there, nobody else can help you. You've got to do it yourself. And yeah, I got around that first one, and I did the following year as well. And I've done 4 London marathons now, 7 in total. You know, I wouldn't be without my running now, even though I can't run like I did then. You know, I get inspiration now from helping others improve, and I'll take lead other groups out of beginners and improvers and help them. And you know, just being able to do it, I know there's such a small percentage of the population have actually done a marathon, so that inspires in itself. And you know, it makes me feel tired hearing about the Comrades and the longer marathons. But on a technicality, I could call myself an ultra runner. In that one of the 7 marathons I actually did was actually 26.5 miles, so it was longer than the marathon distance. So on that technicality, I'm an ultra runner. Okay, but it's the part of life I wouldn't be without me running. I'm a lot slower now than I used to be. You know, in the old days I did a half marathon in 1:35, and I can't even manage 1 mile at that pace these days. So yeah, it's given me all the positivity that I've carried forward in life from that first London Marathon in '84.
Thanks, Kevin. Yeah, and just the, you know, that mindset which has given you the grit and the perseverance to get off that couch and run again is amazing. And I think that also just comes through very, very strongly. Cecile, let's get across to you.
Yeah, when you guys were talking about ultra marathons, I thought, okay, well, I've known a long time ago that I'm definitely not in the group that's going to run Comrades. That's crazy. But as you guys were talking, I realized that I also do ultra things, because when I was doing heptathlon, you do 7 events, 7 athletics events, and you go from the one event to the other event to the other event. And that's also kind of a life lesson, because there are 7 events, and each of the 7 events you get scored on an international points table. So if you are good at if the first event is the hurdles and you do well in the hurdles, then your spirits are all up, and then you go from the hurdles to the shot put, and you have average shot put, and you get points, and some people get better than you, and then you get then you have a chance. When you get to the high jump, you have a chance to bomb out altogether, but at the end of it, they all add up the points, and you keep on going, whether you've done badly or well. And I think that holds well in business. Some things you do well in, and some you're not. Sometimes that you get on well with a buyer, and other times not, but you keep pushing through. So that was the one thing. And then I did the Charlie Super Sports Girl competition, which was also amazing. It is, I think, 8 or 10 events, and some of them you know nothing about. Like I don't think I'm a swimmer at all, or a diver, but you have to swim, and you have to dive, and you have to do dribbling on the soccer ball, and you've got to do fitness exercises, and you've got to do all those kind of things, but you just do it. Maybe Trevor, that's where I learned just to do it, and just keep on going and do it. And my third thing is, as you said, in the squash, when you play the interprovincial tournaments, you play in 5 days. You play in a team against other top teams in South Africa, and you have 2 matches a day, and each of them lasting probably about an hour, intense squash, and then some days even 3 games. So by the end of that week, you are knackered, your body's broken. So that's with squash. And then my funny story is with cycling, I started mountain biking a few years ago. I haven't done it for a while, but I started mountain biking, and then my husband and his friends were training to do the Argus. And the furthest I've done on a mountain bike was at the 20K races, which I did well in. So I was relatively fit, cycling fit, but it was a mountain bike. So and I was going to go with the group of people to the Argus. And 3 days before the Argus, someone said, "Oh, we've got this girl that in the Argus group that can't go anymore. Do you want to use her number? Do you want to ride in the Argus?" I'm like, I don't even have a bike. I have only a mountain bike. But my husband had an old bike. With any of you have cycled, it's got little gears here there and the stem that you change the gears down there. Nothing here at the top on your hands. So I thought, okay, I'll try that. No cleats, tackies, hardly cycling gear. So I thought, okay, let's try this. So, and I've never ridden in a bunch, because mountain biking, you don't ride in a bunch. So I did a solo Argus, and it was actually not bad. I think it was in the top 100 or something like that. But so I was petrified to ride in a bunch. I think in one spot, some bunch came past, or I caught them up or something. And they probably thought I was crazy, because as I was caught up in this bunch, they were all riding together, and I stopped and I said, "Wow, it's like being in a swarm of bees." You just hear the shh of the other bikes, which I wasn't used to at all. They probably thought this woman is crazy. But I did the Argus. I did a good time, and then, but I didn't even have now under my name. It was a good time under her name. And then the next year, I did the Argus again, because I really liked the mode of the Argus, and then I did the 94.7 in my own name, and I did that in a good time as well. But still, I'm not one for bunch riding, because I was never trained to do this bunch riding. So those are my ultra marathon stories.
Thanks, Cecile. Yeah, I also once rode a bike a long distance, and fortunately, shortly after that, it was stolen, so I never had to do it again. So, yeah, when I was working on the mines, I bought myself a road bike on the one weekend, and I took it via train from Western area into Johannesburg, where I stayed with my aunt. And on the Sunday night, I rode back to the mine. So I hadn't ridden it at all. Hadn't ridden for a couple of years on a bicycle, and it was just over an 80k ride back from Joburg to the mine on the Sunday evening. I don't think I could walk properly for the next 3 or 4 days after that. And as I say, the next weekend when I brought it back to Joburg again, it got stolen. So that sorted me out. After that, I only rode bikes with engines. It was a much more sensible plan, I think. So Stella, let's get across to you. Stella, are you with us?
Stella's in the sea today.
Morning, everyone. Sorry, I think with the load shedding, my internet comes and goes. Morning, everyone. So I admire you guys for doing Comrades and ultra marathon, but I knew from a very young age that I was not going to be an athlete. I remember I was in grade 1, and my first athletics competition in school, and my dad was so excited. It's his eldest child, and he's coming to come and watch me, and I came second last. And my dad said, "Don't worry, my child, you tried," you know. So I knew then I was not going to be an athlete. But I've done my own marathons in a different way. I think I've also in the sense where you have to prepare for my honors degree in accounting. And when I went to write the board exams, when you write board exams, you go with, I promise you, a pile of books this high. You go into the exam, and the exam is 5 hours. And trust me, that 5 hours is not enough. you sit there and you can't even go to the toilet. You just sit there and write. And so to me, that's the closest that I'll ever get to a marathon. But I think I've learned something there, what you guys have endured doing a physical marathon. But big ups to you guys. That's definitely, I'm with you, Ivan. It's not on my bucket list. I'm not going to try and do that. Thanks.
Great, thanks, Stella. And Pulela, let's come across to you.
Hi, good morning to everyone. It's very much interesting to hear all this endurance and all these races and all this mountain biking and swimming that people have been doing. And I think I want to acknowledge Mrs. Klute for standing by her man and waiting when everybody is gone and nothing is left and it's a desert. But she stood there, you know, because she could have gone home. It would have been much a happier place for her. But look, she stuck around anyway. Look, interestingly for me, I do run a lot. I do gym a lot. I actually love physical exercise. I find anything physical very therapeutic. Even working in the house, painting walls, it takes my mind into a different place because most of the work I do is sit down thinking about things. But hearing the story of Edward as well as that of Jasper, it just reminded me of something that I know mentally, but I don't think I practice. And what that is celebrating the small steps. To say when you're tired, just say, if I can get to that next tree, if I can get to that next stop sign. I've always known that a person must celebrate, you know, the small steps and the small successes in life, but I don't think I do that. And as you guys were talking, I'm realizing that sometimes endurance comes from that. It doesn't come because physically you're strong, but it comes from the fact that you're saying, if I can get to the next step and celebrate that, let me go to the next step. I tend to be a bit opposite. I tend to try and eat an elephant in one hole all at once. I'm just one of those people who pushes and pushes and pushes and pushes and pushes and pushes and just see this big picture and want to get there. And I'm realizing why often I would get overwhelmed, because I do get overwhelmed a lot in life because I take on so much and want to do many things. And I think I'm also learning that lesson to say, look, if I can celebrate that on this particular day, I aimed to do this one thing and I've done the thing and I've finished it. Following day, celebrate the one thing until I get to the end. I think that's the lesson I'm picking up that I'm having to learn, both physically but also in business. So guys, thank you. I think this is encouraging me. I guess I can't get out of the Comrades now that I've heard all these stories. Ivan, I think I may need you on this one. So let's do it, my man.
I think I'm going to bail on that invitation, Pulela. Thanks all the same. But yeah, there's certain things that I will absolutely do that may even take me further than a Comrades marathon. But to run for an entire day, that doesn't excite me at all. I'd rather walk for a week, I must be honest, or even longer. So let's go to the lady who did do exactly that, 300 kilometers in 10 days, Lee.
Yeah, so that was I met a friend who, or had a friend who did this 300 kilometer walk over the course of 10 days. And I don't know what it was about it. It just inspired me. It just sort of lit something in me. But it took from finding out about it. I had small children at the time, starting a business. So it was about 16 years from hearing about it to actually then doing it. And it took a year of training. And so, yeah, I think it's now 2 years ago that I walked with 10 other women. It was only women only, but we had 2 men as our skivvies. So we certainly had them in their place. They did the driving, the cooking, the wrapping of blisters, and they took us from place to place along the west coast. So near Agrabis. Edward, you know that area well, all the way down the west coast through Namaqualand in September. It was supposed to be, filled with flowers. It was the 4th year of a drought. And so the last couple of days, the further south we went, we got to see some flowers, but for most of it, we walked through a desert of red dust. And although it was sort of cold, it was, September's not, is that mid-season, so not quite spring, not quite winter, but windy, very windy. So we were literally walking through dust storms. And I remember the one particular day, I think it was about the 3rd day. So by this day, you've already got a few kilometers under your feet and you're starting to get tired. And there was this one stretch of 10 kilometers. And it was literally just, as I say, the wind was in our faces, and my sister and I, so I did it with my sister, we were sort of almost at this angle, trying to get through the wind. And it was just an act of, normally we talk, we talked, and people sort of had bets as to how long it would take for us to stop talking, and they lost their money because we talked solidly for 10 days. But we were not talking. All we were doing was getting through this, and we could, there was just, we were also at the back, and there was one other lady in front of us. Everybody else had sort of gone on a little bit ahead. And then out of the corner of our eye, this springbuck just flew past us. I mean, it just sort of 50 meters away, and you just saw this flash of white. And it was in this barren, desolate place where we felt we were literally battling the elements. There was this incredible beauty and energy, and it just absolutely electrified us. And just seeing in a split second this extraordinary beauty, it felt like, oh, we can do this. And that was the lesson for me, is that in the toughest of times, it doesn't have to be some big thing that makes a difference. These small moments of that are just life-giving, give you a breath. 10 kilometers can feel like nothing for a 10-second breath. And so that was a lovely experience for me in that moment. And that there were many others as well, but that was great. So thank you, everybody. What great stories. We have amazing people here. As I said, it's just as well we record these things. So for tomorrow, the thing that stays in my mind from Edward's slides, strangely enough, is the last slide with this big white question mark. And I just thought, what is that? What is our question mark? What is next for us? And we're all living in the state of, we had plans and now we don't have plans. We were going to do something, now we in this limbo period, or we're, eking something out, or we've changed direction, but I would love to hear from you. What's next for you? What are you thinking? What's mulling over in your mind of what's next? What's your question mark? Because maybe it's changed. Maybe it's solidified. Maybe you are still thinking. But yeah, would love to hear. What is your question mark?
Thanks, Leah. So let's see, Jasper's waving desperately. He wants to say something. So
yeah.
Jasper, just before
well, a closing remark for all the non-athletes. A friend of mine summed it up. He said, God gave us arms and legs to drive a car. So don't worry if you don't want to do those distances. But Ivan, I was late in coming in. I hope everybody sang for you for your birthday.
But yeah, I got some rousing birthday wishes. Thank you, Jesper.
All right. Now I just wanted to check up on that. So congrats.
Good. Fantastic. Thanks, everyone. And have a great day forward. Try not to run too many ultra marathons before now and tomorrow morning, but we'll certainly see what the questions are on the table. So have a good one, and we'll see you in the morning. Go well.